Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto built the ultimate harem? Kushina, Shinku, Rin, Mei, Anko, Yūgao, FemKyuubi, Yūgao, Karui&Samui. Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto, Shinku, and Mei were walking through the forest of Kumo, heading for the Namikaze estate until Naruto stopped in his tracks and smirks. Hey Shinku-chan, you and Mei-san head back to the compound. I remembered I needed to do something important. He says, and before Shinku could say anything, Naruto shunshins away and she lets out a frustrating sigh. Baka. Come on Mei-san. She says, but Mei blinks and looks at the redhead. Where is he going? She asks as she follows Shinku. You don't want to know. She mumbles as they head for the Namikaze compound. In the forest, Yūgao was perched up on a tree branch, waiting for a chance to pounce on Naruto when he suddenly shunshins away and to her shock, couldn't detect him. Naruto suddenly appears behind her and pinches her ass cheeks. Yūgao eeps and jumps up on her feet blushing. She growls and turns her right hand into a fist and turns around, ready to knock Naruto lights out. Naruto, you damn pervert, I'm gonna, she started to say but then stops and sees no one there. What the? I could have sworn he was. She started to say until she felt a pair of arms wrap around her waist and looks down to see they belong to Naruto. Hey Kitty-chan. He says and releases her from his grip. How do you keep doing that? She mumbles and crosses her arms over her chest. I'm just that good. He says with a grin on his face making her huff. You're so lucky you're cute, damn it. Naruto shrugs and pulls her into a hug and kisses her lightly on the lips. You're lucky you're so damn Yugi-chan. He says making her grin and reveal a pair of canines. Love you to Foxy. So are you gonna head home or keep holding me like this? She asks only to receive a kiss in return. You were gonna try to pounce me, weren't you? He asked the vessel for the nibby. I was, but you ruined it. She said with a pout on her face making him chuckle. No need to pout, Yugi-hime. How's about I take you out for sushi after you meet Mei-san? Yūgao nods with a grin on her face but then speaks up. Who's Mei? She asks. Akiri Junin we found unconscious near the shores of Kumo during border patrol. She's staying with us until further notice. Why? He asks. No reason. What is it with you and older women? She mumbles. Hey, you're only 3 years older than me and so is Samui-chan. He states as he lets her go. What about Anko and Yūgao? She asks. Anko's not that bad. Okay, maybe she is since she's been trying to jump me and make me her plaything since I was 13. Yūgao-chan is normally quiet and I can be around her and not fear for my virginity. He answered while she giggles. Did Anko have her way with you yet? Naruto's response was a blush. She almost did, and if it wasn't for Rin-ne-chan I would have been scarred for life. He said with a shudder, causing Yūgao to laugh at him. Ah, you poor thing. Must have been a traumatic experience for you. She cooed out and gave him a hug. And now I have to head back home and fear for my innocence again. He mumbled with a fake pout on his face and looks up at Yūgao using the puppy eyes jutsu. You'll protect me from her, won't you, Yugi-hime? Naruto asks. Yūgao's grin became wider and pinches his cheeks. You are so cute when you pout. You look like a sad puppy. She cooed out but then eeps when he pinches her ass again, releasing Naruto. Said blonde grin and runs away with an angry and red Yūgao chasing after him. Come back here and face me like a ninja, you damn pervert. She yelled at the running and laughing blonde. Meanwhile, Shinku and Mei made it to the Namikaze estate and said Kiri Kunoichi was impressed by the sight. Wow. This is a nice compound. She stated. Thanks. The Raikage gave it to us as a welcome gift even though we aren't ninja for his village. she says as they approach the door and were about to open it until Naruto appeared in front of them grinning while an angry and red Yūgao leapt out of nowhere with her clawed gauntlet drawn. Come here you pervert so I can use you as a scratching post, she said and slowly approached them. Shinku tried to dissolve the situation by stepping in between them. Whoa now Yugi, I know Naruto should pay for whatever he did to you, but let's not forget you started it and Aniki, stop being a pervert or I'll tell Ka-san, she said to Naruto, who was performing the raspberry but then stopped and paled when she said she'd tell their mother but then glares at her. Tell and I'll tell her who's been going downstairs at night and stealing her private dango stash, and we both know it's not Anko since she knows better, he says, making her pale. Fine. Jerk, she mumbles while Yūgao puts her weapons away while Naruto walks towards the door but then pauses and rolls his eyes. Hey, you guys might want to step away from the door, he warned. Shinku and Yūgao move to the side leaving a confused Mei, but Shinku pulls her to the side and says, just watch. Naruto rolls his eyes and opens the door, and that was when a blur tackles him to the ground and they roll away for a while and then stop to see Anko grinning and sitting on top of Naruto. Hey Yonadime Chibi, did you miss me? I missed you, she says, getting an irked look from Naruto, who smirks and puffs away. Anko blinks in confusion only to see the real Naruto between Shinku and Yūgao with an M wrapped around their shoulders. Anko pouts and folds her arms. Damn it, I was so close to getting my hands on you, she mumbles and looks at the ground. Naruto chuckles and removes his arms from their shoulders. He then appears behind Anko and leans into her ear and whispers a few things, making her eyes widen and a blush to appear in her face. Naruto motions for the others to go on in while he talks to Anko. Shinku leads them into the house, and that was when Naruto wrapped his arms around her. You know Anko, I'm flattered that you would be interested in me despite the age difference. So what set up this form of attraction you have towards me? He asks while she blushed a little and fidgets. Well, you see, it kinda just happened, to be honest. I've seen how you treat that Yūgao girl, Yūgao-chan, and those other three, and, she explained. I see. But we have fun too, you know. I mean, you're a great prankster and I love teasing you, and you are hot in your own way, even though you tried to make me into a man that day you were drunk, he says while she chuckles slightly from the remark. I remember. Your mom was ready to kill me that day. At least she didn't make you go through 4 hours of kenjutsu training with her, he mumbled as he released her and helped her up. Hey, sorry, she started to say but then winced and grabbed her left shoulder. Naruto frowned and had her kneel down and pulled part of her trench coat and arm away and saw the 3 tomo marks on her and saw it pulsing. Wait, Naruto, don't look at, she started to say but he cut her off. A curse seal. Ero Sennin showed me a picture of it once. Has it been getting worse? He asks and she nods and hisses in pain. Damn, painkillers don't even work anymore, she mumbles and looks away. Naruto places his hand on the seal and channels some of Jubi's chakra into it and makes it stop pulsing. Anko's eyes widen when she doesn't feel any more pain and looks at Naruto, who slowly pulls his hand away. How did you? She started to ask until he smirks. I used this, Naruto says, holding his hand out and revealed a paper with different seals on it. It's a compression seal Ero Sennin taught me and said it can use to seal up foreign chakra. That should help for now, he says, and once again helps her up. That and Jubi's chakra is keeping it in check, he thought while Anko glomps him and gives him a kiss on the cheek. Thanks, Naruto-kun. I'll have to thank you later on today, she says with a mischievous grin on her face. Naruto smirks and gets out of her hug. I think you want to do more than thank me, Anko-chan, and remember I can't do anything serious, yet, he says, and makes her shiver when he rubs her rear with his hand and gives it a good squeeze. Come on, let's go in, he says while she follows him into the compound. As they enter, Naruto saw his mother talking to Mei, Yūgao, Yugito, and Shinku on the couch in the living room, and Kakashi was leaning against the wall smiling at Naruto. What? Naruto asks his surrogate brother, who was grinning under his mask. You have no clue how proud I am of you, Naruto. Bringing home older women. Sniffle. They grow up so fast. He says, wiping a fake tear away from his eye. His response got him a slap upside the head by Rin. Shut it, you, or you're gonna get reacquainted with the couch again. She growled out while Kakashi sweats a little. Heh heh. Well, I think I'll go and see if we need anything for the compound. And Naruto, remember the talk we had and be sure to use protection. He says and shunshuns away with a red-faced Naruto yelling, shut up. That damn pervert. I swear one of these days I'm gonna kick his ass. He muttered until he heard his mother cough to get his attention and succeeded. Oh hey Ka-san. How was your day so far? He asks and was a little nervous due to the fact that she was giving him the look mothers give when their son bring a girl home. Or in her son's case, a woman. It was fine until you brought another female home with you. She says while he slumps his shoulders. Oh, for Kami's sake, Ka-san, I had no idea me and Shinku would find her barely alive near the shoreline. Plus I couldn't leave her out there. He stated while she looked at him for a while in sighs. If Ero Sennin was here, he'd be having a field day with all the females in the house. She mumbled, getting a nod from her son. Too true. Kakashi ni-san is bad enough, but at least he has some control over his perverted side thanks to Rin Ne-chan. He said with a small grin on her face while she blushed lightly and glared at her little brother. So Yugi-chan wears our baka of a sensei. Did he do something to piss the old man off again? He asked the Nibi container and she shrugs. Knowing him, he probably did. So Mei-san Kiri is still in the middle of a war, right? Yugito asks the dual bloodline wielder, who nods. I'm afraid so. I am on the rebel side, but we're slowly losing the fight. Yugura the Yondaime Mizukage is a Jinchuriki of the Sanbi no Onakame. She finished getting wide eyes from everyone except Naruto and Shinku since they knew already. The bloodline purge just happened out of nowhere. He believes that bloodlines are the reason why we always have war and wanted to purify, not just water country but the other elementals as well. He's even having the shinobi kill even children. She said as the images of dead children enter her mind. Everyone's eyes widen at what she said and couldn't believe a cage would do something like that. So the only thing I could think of is to ask the Raikage for assistance, but I'm afraid that it would start another great shinobi war. We had another container for the Rokubi no Namakuji, but he disappeared after the civil war started. She finished. After being silent for a few seconds, Kushina spoke up. I see. Well, I would definitely help you, and so would my friends and children. My son is actually the holder of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, and we have Sharingan no Kakashi, two of my students who are very strong, and my late husband's other student whose medical skills are on par with Tsunade's. She said, getting a wide-eyed look from Mai. That was when Yugito spoke up. I'm the container for the Nibi no Nekomata, and the Raikage's younger brother is the container for the Hachibi no Kyogyu. We are the guardians of Kaminari no Kuni. She said. You two along with the Raikage's brother are Jinchuriki. She asks and gets a nod from Naruto and Yugito. We can each control the power of our Biju, and Naruto-kun here is the youngest of us. Yugito said. I see. If you all could help me save our village and country, I'd be forever in your debt. She said. No problem. Rin, would you be so kind and show Mei to one of the guest rooms? I'm sure she would love to take a shower and change into some comfortable clothes. Kushina asks the Med Kunoichi, who nodded and got up. Follow me, Mei-san. She says, and Mei gets up and follows her upstairs. After that, Yugito appeared beside Naruto with her arms wrapped around him and grins. So are we gonna go out for sushi or do I need to tell your mom that you pinched my ass earlier? Whoops, I just did. She says, grinning while Naruto glares at her but pales and slowly turns his head to see a dark aura surrounding his mother. He started to sweat bullets, and before Kushina could do anything, Naruto grabs Yugito's shoulder and shunsins out of the house. Shinku and Yūgao laugh lightly while Anko grins. You're not gonna kill your only son, are you, sensei? Anko asks her teacher, who lets out a frustrated sigh. No, but I can beat the crap out of him later. I never should have let Kakashi give Naruto the talk. She mutters, lays back on the couch. You really need to relax, sensei, and find yourself a boyfriend soon or you're gonna go nuts from the lack of activity. Anko says, causing Kushina to fall onto the floor while Yūgao sweat dropped. Shinku, however, fell to the floor laughing her ass off, and Kushina shot up from the ground and glared at her student hard. For that comment, Anko, you can't have dango for 2 weeks. She said and smirked when Anko paused and paled. No. Anko's cry echoed throughout Kumo, causing many people stop and wonder who was suffering right now. Anko was currently in a corner curled up into a ball, crying her eyes out while Shinku giggled. You should learn to keep your mouth shut, Anko. Well, I'm gonna go change, Ka-san. Shinku then heads upstairs while Yūgao was patting a sobbing Anko on the back. Later on that night, everyone in the compound was sound asleep in their rooms, but outside the compound 8 shadows were zipping through the roof of the building, and they wore blank masks with the kanji, "ne," on it. Danzo-sama's orders are to capture the girl and kill the Kyuubi boy. Stay quiet and alert because there are 4A and 1S ranked shinobi in the compound. One Root Anbu ordered while the other 3 nodded. They opened a sun roof and quietly leapt into the hallway and separated into 2 groups. Meanwhile, Naruto was in his room sound asleep until his eyes snapped open, revealing the Sharingan which glowed in the moonlight. Team 1 found a door on the right and slowly opened it, revealing a room and a person sleeping in the bed. The 2 Root members slowly crept up and drew their tantos when they saw that it was one of their targets. The leader raised his tanto and instantly pulled the cover off, but the body faded away and in its place was a seal that glowed white. Before the Root members could react, a surge of electricity coursed through their bodies, making them scream out in pain and collapse while their bodies twitched and jerked. Naruto appeared wearing only a pair of black cargo pants while his Sharingan glowing in the dark. He then summoned 2 clones and had them tie the 2 drones up. That was when an explosion occurred and the house rocked, making his eyes widen. What the hell? Ah shit, Shinku, Naruto said and suddenly warps away. Outside the building, an explosion occurred in the eastern side of the compound and smoke rose from it. A red blur leapt out of the smoke and into the forest with 4 black blurs coming after her. Shinku was leaping through the tree tops, clutching her bleeding arm. She suddenly stopped on a tree limb and flipped off of it when a barrage of kunai went right after her. She landed on the ground and sped away into the forest. 2 more Root Anbu leapt out of the trees and went after her. Who the heck are those guys and why did they attack me? She thought as she increased her speed. As she sped past a tree, her eyes widened when she saw an exploding tag glow. Shit. She performed a few hand seals and slammed her hands on the ground and a wall of earth appeared in front of her. Another explosion occurred, but the power behind it was so powerful that it reduced the wall into rubble and sent Shinku flying backwards. She suddenly hit the ground and tumbled backwards a couple of times. She leapt back on her feet and made her way towards the lake. She leapt on top of it and performed a few hand seals. Sweden. Sujinheki. She cried out and a wall of water surrounded her while drills made of water shot out around her wall of water. When the technique ended, the water wall dropped but it revealed no one. 2 Root Anbu appeared in top of the lake and looked around. Where did she go? 1 Root asks as they looked around. She couldn't have escaped. We would have sensed her chakra by now. The second one answered. At the edge of the lake, a green frog pops out of the water and slowly swims to the shoreline. It crawls out of the lake and hops away into the forest while the root Anbu look for Shinku. After leaping away from the area for a while, it stops and slowly opens its mouth. A hand shoots out, and after that a whole arm, head full of red hair, and a body comes out of the toad's mouth. Shinku was kneeling down panting, and the toad disappears in a puff of smoke. It's only a matter of time before they find me. I better head back to the Shinku. A voice behind her said. By reflex she pulled out a kunai and swung it towards the shadowy figure, but he stopped her wrist. She tried to kick him in the side only for him to grab her leg, and pin her to the ground while she struggled. Imouto, chill, it's me, Naruto said, revealing his face to her. Aniki. What the heck is going on and who are those? She started to say until he covered her mouth and did a shushing motion with his finger. Quiet. Those masked ninja are still searching for you, he said, getting off her and motioning his hand to follow her. That was until a kunai passed by him and was embedded into a tree. Naruto and Shinku look up to see two root Anbu descend towards them from the trees with their blades drawn. Naruto curses due to the fact that he left his kunai at the compound, as does Shinku. They leapt backwards when the drones land in their previous location and then charge towards the siblings. As they approach the Namikaze twins, they swung their blades at their heads. Naruto ducks and grabs the root Anbu's wrist. He twists it hard, hearing a snapping sound come from the drone's wrist, and before the nin could scream, Naruto positioned the tanto and thrusts it into his heart, killing him instantly. Naruto tosses the dead body to the side and sees Shinku unleash a barrage of punches on the other root ninja. She then kicks the ninja hard in his masked face, breaking it and sending the drone flying into a tree and knocked him out. Naruto's eyes widen and yells. Shinku, duck. Said girl duck while a tanto hits nothing but air. Naruto appears in front of the shocked root ninja with a swirling blue ball of chakra in his hand. Rasengan. Naruto yelled as he slams his father's technique into the nin's gut and sends him flying through 3 trees and a boulder, killing the root ninja while Shinku gets back up on her feet. That was when they heard the sound of 1,000 birds chirping and a blood-curdling scream. Kakashi appears with his right hand coated in blood. Kakashi ni-san, Shinku says as she runs over to the man. Are you two okay? Kakashi asks while Naruto appeared next to his sister. We're fine. What about Ka-san and the others? They didn't get caught in the explosion, did they? Naruto asks. No, they didn't. But we dealt with the others. Kakashi says as he walks over to the dead body of a root Anbu and pulls the mask off. His normal eye narrows when he sees the kanji for ne on it. So Danzo is behind this. I should have known. Kakashi mumbled as he tosses the mask away. Isn't he the cripple that mom that wanted to have me and Naruto ni turned into a breeding factory? Shinku asks but doesn't see her brother's Sharingan flash in the dark but fades afterwards. Kakashi nods while flicking the blood off his arm. Sadly, yes. The 2 elders as well as the civilians wanted to turn you both into their personal playthings, but our mother retaliated and killed several members as well as sent Danzo to the hospital. The rest you already know, he said while Shinku treated her arm. To think our 2-san sacrificed his life for those ungrateful bastards, she said while Naruto nods. Yeah, but at least we'll be able to carry on his legacy even if we aren't a part of that village. I'm sure he'd be proud of us, Shinku-chan. Naruto said. Kakashi smiled and nods in agreement. Well, let's clean up this mess and head back to the compound, Kakashi said, and they use a Kaiden and water jutsu to get rid of the bodies and afterwards, head back. Back at the compound, Kushina, Rin, Anko, Yūgao, and Mei were outside the partly destroyed living quarters. Yūgao and Mei were putting out the fire with some sweetened jutsus while Rin was treating a few burn injuries Anko had. Kushina on the other hand had a barely conscious root nin by the collar and she was beyond pissed. She already killed 2 of the root nin that tried to escape but she kept one alive in order to get some info from him. Listen here you bastard. You better tell why you attacked us and why my children are missing right now before I send you back to your master in pieces. She yelled shaking the drone violently. He won't talk Ka-san. Naruto said. Kushina dropped the man and saw her children along with Kakashi walking towards them. In a flash of red she had the 2 children she brought in the world and hug. Naruto. Shinku. Oh thank Kami you 2 are okay. She said in relief while they returned the hug. We're fine Ka-san. Naruto assured his mother who released them and noticed Shinku's arm was bandaged up a little. Shinku your arm. Kushina said worriedly while the younger redhead looked at it. I got hit by some of the debris Ka-san, that's all. She replied while Naruto walked over to the root ninja's barely conscious form and slammed his foot into the man's face knocking him out. He then drags the Nei operative towards his mother and sets him down, rips the mask off and pries his mouth open. Kushina and Hikari are confused by this until Naruto pulls the tongue out slightly. Like I said earlier Ka-san you won't get any info from these guys. These Juin marks keep them from talking about Danzo or his operations. If they do then the mark instantly activates and their body freezes up instantly. Naruto explained while their eyes widened. Sochi how do you know so much about seals? I mean I know Jiraiya taught you and Shinku the aspects of Fuinjutsu and how to use them properly but I honestly didn't think you'd get this far. She asked. Naruto on the other hand I smiled. Dad's intellect rubbed off on me. He answered but that was when and a squad of his Anbu appeared. Kushina what the hell happened here? I could practically see the smoke coming from your home from the tower. He demanded while the Anbu and Kakashi went to help Yūgao and Mei in putting out the fire. Kushina brushed her hair back and spoke up. We were attacked by some ninja from Konoha. She answered which made the man's eyes widen in shock. But they're not any of Sarutobi's men. They belong to a man named Danzo. He had a confused look on his face until Naruto spoke up. He's the Tem I told you about that forced us to leave Konoha. Naruto answered. I see. Are any of his men alive? He asks. Naruto lifted an unconscious root nin in front of This one is sensei but he has a Juin seal that keeps him from talking about his master so you'll need to contact Ero Kyofu and have him take a look at it. Naruto stated while the man nods and snaps his fingers, making 2 Anbu appear at attention. You 2 take this man to the Anbu holding cells until Jiraiya-sama returns and have him searched for any form of weapon as well as suicidal pills. He ordered. The masked nin nodded, grabbed the root nin, and vanished. How are the others Ka-san? Naruto asks his mother. Anko-chan, Yūgao-chan, Mei-chan, and Rin-chan are all fine Sochi though we're gonna have to stay in an apartment complex until the compound is fixed. She said and looks at Reikage-sama I'm sorry that this incident occurred. She said bowing but he blinks in confusion and waves it off. There is no need for you to apologize Kushina-chan. Konoha in a sense are responsible for this incident and I assure you that I will be getting an explanation from the old monkey about this. He seriously needs to put his subordinates on a tighter leash. He growled out and afterwards shunshins away as do the remaining Anbu. Kushina sighs and brushes her hair back. Why can't those bastards just leave us alone? She mumbled and Naruto frowned when he heard this and swore that he would kill Danzo and his lackeys. He was not gonna let that man destroy his family. Just you wait Danzo-tem. The next time we meet I will shove a raikiri into your chest and rip your vile heart out. He said clenching his fists in anger. Oh come on big bro. Why can't I go help assist in the war yo? Kurabi whined while E's brow twitched dangerously. For the last time you were already on a mission when I picked the ninja that'll help Mei-san's side in the bloodline purge and Yugito's already going with them. 2 Jinchuriki are more than enough to deal with the Mizukage and the Sanbi since their other Jinchuriki has left Kiri's forces. He said in a calm but angry tone. But what about my students Samui, Karui, and Omoi? Kurabi asked. They will be fine, damn it. You must stay to guard the borders of our country and that's final. He said with a tick mark on his face and was 5 seconds away from sending Kurabi into a mountain. That was when Naruto appeared in the tower and sweat dropped when he saw E ready to beat the crap out of his younger brother. Do I need to come back later? The blonde asked while E let out a sigh. No, Naruto, stay. So is the group prepared to head into water country territory? He asked and got a nod from the blonde. Good, and so that you all will be posing as mercenaries that may hired to help assist in the war since the last thing we need is another international incident in tampering with a neutral country's affairs. Do you all have a plan in how to deal with the man's forces? E asked Naruto, who nodded. Thanks to all the knowledge he gained from Madara after he absorbed him from his timeline, Naruto knew all of Kiri's strongholds, security shifts, locations of their backup supplies, and their weak spots. What about the daimyos? Naruto asked. They already know that we're making this attempt and are already planning to start a treaty with us once the rebellion side succeeds. Remember to stay alert out there, Naruto, because the ninja there are masters in stealth and assassination. He said, getting a nod from the blonde. And so am I, he thought. So right now our best bet would be to leave early tomorrow since their boat patrols are more alert at night than in the daytime. Naruto stated, getting a nod from E while Kurabi sulked in a corner. So what about the issue we had with Konoha? Naruto asked, and the man sighs in frustration. I hate to tell you this, Naruto, but unfortunately Danzo cannot be touched due to all the political influence he has on most of the governing system in Konohagakure, and despite our attempts to get any info out the root Anbu, even with the curse mark removed, he reluctantly died from the interrogation and torture he went through. He said. Those words caused Naruto's eyes to flash red for a few seconds and he clenches his fists in anger. You mean to tell me that that cripple is gonna get away with sending his drones after my family and live to see another day? He asked in a dangerous tone, getting a reluctant nod from the man. Yes, but I sent a message to the Sandaime and gave him a warning that Konoha nin were not allowed to enter Kumo territory until further notice, and if any ninja from Konoha were seen anywhere in our country they'd be killed on the spot, and I also doubled our patrol squads around the borders. He stated. I see, but how does that keep Danzo Tem in check? Naruto asked E, who grinned. To simply put it, Konoha would end up going to war with us, and it would be a war they cannot win because not only are they still recovering their forces from the Kyuubi's attack, but Kumo happens to have 3 Jinchuriki on their side while they have none. All in all, Yugito, and Kurabi will have little to no problem razing that place to the ground. He answered. That may be true, but Danzo's not someone who should be taken lightly. He was one of the few who competed with Hiruzen Sarutobi for the Hokage title, and the man is an opportunist and manipulator. He'll do whatever it takes to get what he wants, no matter what the consequences. Naruto explained. I'll take your word on that. Well, good luck, kid, and please make sure those 4 get back in one piece or Kurabi will level half of Kumo to the ground. He stated since Yugito, Karui, Omoi, and Samui were like family to Kurabi, and to harm them in any way, shape, or form would spell death for the person responsible, and a pissed of Kurabi was a dangerous Kurabi since the man was the strongest shinobi in the village next to E and Kushina. I will, and I'll make sure Karui-chan doesn't kill that laid-back Baka Omoi during the mission. He said jokingly while he chuckles, knowing good and well how those 2 are always at it, and Samui and Yugito would have to be the ones to break it up. Yes, please do. he said while Naruto gives him a mock salute and disappears in a swirl of wind. The next day, Kumo shipping ports. It was midnight near the shipping docks of one of Kumo's ports, and standing near a large cargo ship were Kushina, Naruto, Shinku, Kakashi, Rin, Mei, Anko, and Yūgao, along with the Kumo ninja that were gonna aid them, who happened to be Yugito, Karui&Samui, Omoi, and a squad of Anbu that were picked personally by Naruto was currently inspecting his gear, as were the others. Omoi was currently sighing while sucking on a lollipop and pondering on what would happen if this S-ranked mission would fail. Naruto saw the faraway look on Omoi's face and chuckles while making his way towards him. Omoi just kept pondering on the consequences if they were to fail to aid the rebel faction and get caught, until he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned his head to see a smirking Naruto. You know, Omoi pondering on the negative outcomes isn't healthy, he stated, and the young sword user shrugs. I know, but hey, this is my first time going into the unknown territory of a neutral nation, and you never know what could happen there, he stated. Karui sighed in frustration and bopped Omoi on the head. Listen to what Naruto-kun is saying, Omoi. You take things way too seriously. Lighten up for a change. Besides, I can't wait to start kicking ass and taking names, she said as she flexed her arm and grinned. Said sword user looks at her with a bored expression and shrugs once again. Whatever, he said nonchalantly, which made her stumble over, but she caught her footing and growled at her teammate. She slowly raised her fist and swung it at an unaware Omoi until Naruto appeared in between them and caught her fist in his palm. You can pummel the laid-back idiot after our mission, Karui-chan, Naruto said, smiling at the girl who was now blushing, and pulled her hand away from his and folded her arms across her chest. Fine, she muttered while he chuckled. Hey Naruto-kun. Hitomi spoke up. Yeah, Hitomi-chan, he asked. How are you gonna handle the Yondaime Mizukage and the Sanbi? I'm pretty sure you and Yugito alone would be capable of handling them both, but do you have a way to beat him without killing him and releasing the overgrown turtle? She asked while Naruto pondered on this and spoke up. Actually, I do. From the knowledge I gained from Madara, he placed a powerful genjutsu on Yagura and controlled his actions throughout Kiri, and having him start the bloodline genocide war, he said with a frown on his face. To be able to control a Jinchuriki who has full control over their Biju under a Sharingan-influenced genjutsu is amazing yet terrifying. Madara indeed was a man to be feared. Now I can see why my dad had a tough time facing him in my timeline. Indeed, but since you not only absorbed and gained Madara's and Sasuke's as well as the Jubi's knowledge, powers, eyes, and jutsus, facing the one in this dimension should be a sink for you since you know what he's planning to do, she stated. Maybe, but it's possible this Madara would be different from the one I fought and will more than likely try to use the Biju to gain his original strength back, but I can't worry about the Akatsuki yet. My primary concern is this war as well as Orochimaru and Danzo, he said to the vixen who nodded in his mindscape. That was when he felt a hand on his shoulder and looked up to see Kakashi. Are you nervous, Naruto? This is yours and Shinku's first time entering unknown territory and fighting in a war, and this is different from doing a mission since anything could happen, he asked the blonde with a concerned look on his masked face. A little aniki, but I'll manage, he assured the copy nin who nodded his head. Okay, but stay focused because in a few hours we'll be entering a war zone, he stated and left to get all of his gear ready, but a thought ran in his mind. That's really weird. Naruto doesn't seem so worried like Shinku was in the look in his eyes. Those were the eyes of a shinobi who has fought in countless battles and has taken many lives, but that can't be right. I mean, sure, Naruto has been on missions when he's had to kill, but maybe I'm just seeing things. A while later they all boarded the cargo ship and it set sail towards Kiri. Inside the cargo hold, Naruto was currently sitting on a crate, sharpening his ninjutsu with a smooth stone, and that was when Yūgao walked around the corner and sat next to him. They remained silent for a few minutes until the blonde spoke up. You know, Karabi raised a huge stink over not being able to join in the war, right? He asked while she chuckled and shook her head. Yeah, that sounds like something our overgrown bull-headed sensei would do, especially with Omoi, Karui, and Samui with us. He's very overprotective of them. So you ready to participate in your first war? She asked the blonde, who nodded and sheathed his blade, and that was when she wrapped her arms around him and held him close to her body. Just promise me you and Shinku-chan will be careful out there so that we can come back home in one piece. Naruto sighs and wraps an arm around her waist. I will, Yūgao-chan. Plus, if I end up dying, you can just have Nibi bring me back to life and beat the stupidity out of me. He said jokingly, which made her and Nibi chuckle at the thought. All kidding aside, I will be careful, I promise. He said and kissed her on the cheek. Yeah, just like the one where you promised me you wouldn't try to cut through that minefield when that dog got away from you. She replied. Hey, that was the lightning lady's purebred poodle, and if I do remember, it was your fault I had to go into that minefield since she bit you on the ass because you smelled like cats. He said, which made her fume. Whatever, you blonde jerk. She said and got off the crate and grabbed Naruto's hand. Come on, we're an hour away from the hidden dock May was talking about. She said as she led them out of the cargo hold. Secret docking port. As the ship entered and docked next to the port, the group made their way out of the cargo ship and May led them to the secret route that would take them to the rebel camp. As they walked through the path, a small group of Kiri ninja appeared and blocked their path. That was when one of them walked forward. Hold it. Are you allies or enemies? The male asked. He was 6'1" and was wearing the Kiri Junin outfit. He had black spiky hair, reddish-brown eyes, and the lower part of his face was covered in black bandages. Strapped to his back was a large broadsword. From tip to handle, it is approximately 5 to 6 feet long, with a single-edged, enormous blade approximately 1 foot wide. It sported a bolted, steel base and blade, and there are 2 holes on the blade near the hilt. The base is retconned to having a swirling or winged motif at its base, tinted gold, and the blade is now black, with engraved marks at its base. All in all, the blade was wicked looking. Naruto, in the other hand, raised an eyebrow when he saw the man. Whoa, this guy looks just like Zabuza. Wonder if they're related in any way. He thought. That was May made her way through the group and stepped forward. Hello, Shinjin Momochi. May said with a smile on her face while Shinjin's eyes widened in shock. May, you're alive. But how? I heard from the group that retreated that you were claimed by the sea after the failed attempt to attack the Mizukage and his naval force. He asked the lava user, whose smile grew. I would have had it not been for the children of the late Yondaime Hokage. She stated and motioned for the 2 siblings to step forward, and Shinjin's eyes widened when he saw 2 teenage versions of the Yellow Flash and Red Death. They found me barely alive near the shores of Kumo and have helped me fully recover. She explained, and that was when Kushina stepped forward, which made Shinjin's eyes bug out, as did the other Kiri ninja. It's Kushina Uzumaki, the Red Death. One of the Kiri nin stated as he pointed at her. Kushina, on the other hand, rubbed the back of her head in embarrassment. Yes, I am the Red Death, and these 2 are my children, and we, along with my students, my late husband's students, and the group of Kumo nin, are here to assist you and the rebels in ending this war. Kushina stated, making the Kirin in Gakken start to whisper to each other. Can you believe it? We've got the Red Death on our side and get to see her in action. One male Kiri nin said. I know. She was the only ninja who could go toe-to-toe with the Yellow Flash, and wait, she had kids with the man who wiped out Iwa's shinobi army in the blink of an eye. A female Kiri nin said. Yeah, the blonde looks just like the Yondaime Hokage. I wonder if he knows the Hiraishin and Rasengan his father created. Another nin asked. Kushina's sweat dropped when she heard all of this and sighs. Great, I've got fan club here just like in Kumo. She muttered while the Kumo nin's sweat dropped and the former leaf nin snicker. Naruto on the other hand was focusing on Shinjin, who raised an eyebrow. What? He asked the blonde, who blinked a few times. By any chance are you related to a Zabuza Momochi? Naruto asked and the man's eyes widened but then returned to normal. Yeah, I'm related to that idiot. He's my younger brother. Why? He asked the blonde. Well, you both look the same in a sense. He answered while the man chuckled. Yeah, we get that a lot since I'm known as the Devil of the Mist while he's known as the Demon of the Mist. The only difference is that I'm stronger than him. The Baka should have listened to me when I told him not to make an attempt to kill the Yondaime Mizukage yet, but the damn brat was stubborn as hell. If I ever find him, I'm gonna break every damn bone in his body. Shinjin stated with an evil gleam in his eye which made Naruto's sweat drop. Yeah, you're related to him all right. Well, it's an honor to be fighting alongside of you. He said as he offered his hand, which the man looked at for a while and at Naruto but then nodded and shook the blonde's hand. Likewise, and I look forward to seeing the son of the Yellow Flash fight as well. Shinjin stated. After being introduced to the other Kirin and the Kumo nin that were assisting them, Shinjin and the Kiri nin led them to the rebel camp. Rebel camp. As the group approached the camp, they noticed that in the camp were a lot of Kirin that were ranked as Chunin, Jonin, Anbu, and some were wearing hunter masks, meaning they were Oi nin. There were plenty of tents that range from small to large, and the large ones apparently were meant for holding supplies as well as the refugees that were against the war. There also appeared to be those with bloodlines in the group and some that Naruto recognized, like a few members of the Kagaya clan, Hyo clan, Ketsuki blood clan, this is Renmara's clan, and a few others. Most of the clan members consisted of young adults who were tending to the children. That was when Shinjin stopped and looked at the group. Well, May, since you're back, let's head to the main tent and inform the temporary leader that you're back. The rest of you can join up, or if you want, look around but don't wander too far. The Zanbato user said and left with May following, and that was when Kushina spoke up. Kakashi, Anko, Yūgao, Rin, and Yukumo Anbu are coming with me to meet the leaders of this rebellion. Naruto, Shinku, Yugito, Karui&Samui, and Omoi can look around. She said, getting a nod from the group while the adults left. So, what should we do now that we're here? Shinku asked the group, and that was when Omoi spoke up. I don't know about you, but I'm just gonna sit under a tree and take a nap. Omoi said as he left with his hands in his pockets, getting a sweat drop from them all. Lazy baka. Karui mumbled but then appeared beside Naruto and wrapped her arms around his arm. Come on, Naruto-kun, you and I can look around and spend some time alone. She emphasized alone and had a grin on her face and dragged him off to God knows where, while said blonde blinked a few times and shrugs and walks alongside her, leaving Yugito and Samui glaring hard at Karui's back. Said dark-skinned female turned her head around and did a victory sign with her hand and grinned cheekily at the two blondes had tick marks on their heads. That bitch. Where does she get off stealing your future mate? Nibby hissed in her mindscape. Yeah, where does she get stealing my wait what? Nibby, he's not my mate. She yelled at the cat demon with a red face. Oh please kitten, don't even try to pull that. You two are practically inseparable. You better claim his manhood first before those other girls do. She stated, which made Yugito blush and sputter. But, she stammered until Shinku slung her arms around Yugito and Samui's shoulders. Come on now, you two, let's check out the place. She said while the two sigh and follow her. Main tent. Inside the tent were the leaders of the different divisions of the rebellion and were currently discussing a plan in invading Kurigakure, and that was when one of the leaders of the Hunter Nin division heard his name being called. Ao-san! Ao-san! Cried a frantic voice. Outsize and sees Chojuro run into the room panting. Chojuro has short tufty blue hair, and dark eyes. He also has pointed, shark-like teeth, traits that all known members of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist as well as apprentices shared. He wears square, black-rimmed glasses connected to what appear to be headphones, a blue striped shirt and camouflage pattern pants that resemble the clothing Zabuza Momochi wore during his first appearance. Also, he wears his forehead protector on the front of his holster like a badge on his chest. He carries haramakare on his back, wrapped with large bandages. He also has a shuriken holder strapped onto each leg. What is it now, Chojuro? We were in the middle of an important meeting, he said while the blue-haired swordsman manages to regain his breathing and speaks up. She's back. Mei-san is back, he said, which made the man's eyes widen. What do you mean she's back? She drowned during the failed raid on Yagura's personal ship, said a man named Anishi Yukamura, the white tiger of the mist. He was 6'1" and had short spiky snow-white hair and wore a long-sleeved white Chinese shirt with matching pants and black boots with an okatana strapped to his waist. That was when the russet-haired woman walked into the tent with a grin on her face. Ah, Anishi, that hurts, she said, and everyone inside the tent's eyes bug out. And to think I thought we were best friends. She finished with a mock pout on her face. May. But how? We were told you drowned. He asked. She would have been had it not been for my children, said a feminine voice behind May, and Kushina walked in behind her, which caused everyone's eyes to bug out and silence filled the room. Oh my god, it's the Red Death, shouted Koga, the leader of the tracking and scouting squad. He looks like the Koga from Inuyasha, only he wears the Kiri shinobi outfit, while the others just gawked. May, what is the wife of the Yondaime doing here? Isn't she a part of Konoha? Anishi asked the female Terumi, who shook her head. No, she and her family reside in Kumo and are working as ninja for hire, and they are going to assist us in ending this war. Her children, Naruto Namikaze and Shinku Namikaze, saved me when I washed upon the shores of Kaminari no Kuni, and I stayed with them until I fully recovered. I also asked the Raikage for some assistance, and he allowed several of his Anbu and some Chunin and Junin assist us. May explained. I see. So who are the other ninja that are with you aside from your children, Kushina-sama? Asked a rugged man who was in his 40s and went by the name Benkei. Please, there is no need for formalities, and as for others, they are Kakashi Hatake, Rin Inuzuka, Anko Mitarashi, and Yūgao Azuki, and they last 2 are my students, as the other 2 were former students of my husband. She answered, and the group looked like they were gonna have heart attacks. Those ninja were practically a ranked in the bingo book, with Kushina being a SS class ranked kunoichi whose representatives surpassed even Tsunade's. This is too good to be true. Somebody pinch me, Anishi said to himself, but then he yelped and rubbed his arm due to the fact that Kagura Kagaya pinched his arm and had a grin on her face. She was wearing a battle black kimono with a pair of biker shorts and had a nodashi strapped to her back. What he said, pinch him, so I did, she said with a grin on her face while the other's sweat dropped. Meanwhile, Naruto was walking around the village with the dark-skinned kunoichi holding onto his arm and looked at the sight before them. There appeared to be a lot of medical tents, since outside the tents were medical nin treating those who got injured, and saw plenty of body bags where family members were crying over the loss of their loved ones. Karui couldn't help but be saddened at this. She knew war wasn't pretty, since she and Omoi were war orphans due to the fact that their parents were killed in the last one. As they walked around, they heard the sound of someone calling for help and saw 2 Kirin in. One was female and had raven-colored hair and violet eyes, and she was having trouble holding him up due to the fact that he had a couple of kunai and tantos sticking out of his back, and his right arm seemed to have second-degree burns. Akira, hang in there, we're almost at the medical ward, she said as she tried to hoist him up on her shoulders. Why, you should have left me there, Koroko-chan. Akira stated and grunted in pain. Shut up. I don't want to hear you talking like that, now stay awake you baka. She said, and then turned her head to see a male blonde teenager run up to them and a dark-skinned female teenager walk up to them, as well as a small group of medical nin. Oh, thanked Kami. She said. Here, let us help you get him to a tent. Naruto offered, and he and Karui carefully placed Akira's arms over his shoulders, and Kuroko smiled tiredly as she let Karui take over. Thank you, she said as she held her bleeding arm while one of the medic nin walked over and helped heal her arm while the others led Naruto and Karui to one of the medical tents. A few hours later, Naruto, Karui, and Kuroko were sitting outside the medical ward while said Kiri Kunoichi had a bandaged arm and a few patches on her face. A medical nin walked out of the tent and wiped a bead of sweat off his forehead. How is he? Kuroko asked the man, whose sighs but a small smile forms on his face. He'll be fine. He just needs to stay off his feet for a few weeks. Luckily none of those weapons hit his vital organs. The med nin said while Kokura let out a sigh of relief. Oh, thanked Kami. She said to herself. Naruto then sat up, which made Karui raise an eyebrow in confusion. Come on, Karui-chan. We need to head back. He said, which made her nod and get up. Night. The 6 leaders of the rebel forces along with their platoons of ninja were standing on a hilltop. Naruto was standing beside Kakashi and Anko, who were in their war gear, and standing in the middle of the leaders was Mei Terumi, who was in her war gear and had her blade Kanheim, Blaze Princess, strapped to her back, Nero's blade Red Queen from DMC4. Listen up everyone. She called out, getting the attention of the other ninja. I am gonna be honest with you all. Tomorrow is not promised to us, and we'll more than likely die in this final attempt to free our home and country from the darkness that has plagued it since the Yondaime Mizukage started the bloodline purge. All I ask from you is to look out for one another, and should you fall, take as many of our enemies as you can with you until you breathe your last breath. Tonight will be the fall of the bloody mist and the rise of a new era for us in the next generation. She said and raised her fist in the air for Kiri. She cried out. Anishi raised his fist in the air. For Kiri. Benkei did the same as his fellow comrades. For Kiri. As did Kagura Kagaya. For Kiri. And Koga Kurukami, Black Wolf, did the same as well. For Kiri. And finally Ao. For Kiri. Shin Momochi stood forwards and drew his Zabetu and raised it in the air. For Kiri. He shouted, which was responded by the other Kiri nin let out a battle cry that echoed throughout the forest. Mizukage Tower. Yūgao was currently wearing his cage robes with the hat overshadowing his eyes, with his Anbu flanking him. Cry out all you want, you fools. You are merely delaying the inevitable. He said in a deep tone. A few hours later, the sound of metal clashing against metal, battle cries, and flames burning echoed throughout Kurigakure no Sato, and apparently the rebel side was advancing due to them attacking the less guarded areas instead of the main gate. They also managed to cut off their backup supplies and some of the communication towers. Right now Naruto and Kasashi were taking down Chunin-ranked Kiri nin left and right. Said blonde ducked when a broadsword whizzed past his head, taking off a few strands, and delivered a chakra-enhanced punch to the man's gut and sent him flying into a concrete wall. That was when a chain ensnared his arm and saw 5 Kiri ascend towards him with their kunai and blades drawn ready to skewer him. Naruto closes his eyes for a few seconds and they snap open, revealing his Sharingan. Chidori Nagashi, Thousand Bird Current. He said quietly, and a powerful electronic discharge erupts from every part of his body, which electrocutes the Kiri nin and makes them cry out in sheer agony due to having volts of electricity course through their body. They collapse onto the ground, twitching in pain while the current continues to surge around the blonde. Kakashi just knocked out a Jonin-ranked nin with a chop to the back of the neck and turns his head sideways to see Naruto, and his eyes widened at what he saw, especially when he saw the Sharingan in the blonde eyes. The copy nin shook his head and turned his attention toward a small group of charging Kiri ninja heading right from him. I must be dreaming because I just saw Naruto have the Sharingan, but that's insane. The battle must be getting to me. He then pulls out his ninjutsu and sprints towards the other group. Naruto turned his head to see a group of bloodline users be cornered by a squad of Anbu who were performing hand seals, and several water dragons descended towards them. Naruto did and few hand seals and slammed his hands on the ground. Doden. Kudo Toride, Earth Release. Earth Fortress, he called out. Before the dragons had a chance to engulf the bloodline users, 3 large walls of earth rose up in front of them and protected them from the water jutsu, much to the Anbu's shock. What the who did? The first Anbu asked while Naruto phased behind them by rising from the ground, like Madara did when he fought Fu and Torun. One Anbu snaps out of his stupor and swings his ninjutsu at Naruto's head, only for it to phase through, and the blonde smirks as he grabs them both, creates a vortex that sucks in 4 of the Anbu, and the rest charge at Naruto, and said blonde does the same but pulls out a long chain that is connected to 2 bracelets that are attached to his wrists. The Anbu make an attempt to run their blades through him, but like last time, they along with the blades phase through the blonde and afterwards, twisted his body in order to ensnare them in the chain and sent surges of electricity through the chains which electrocute the Anbu, who also collapsed on the ground twitching. Naruto removes the braces and smirks at the bloodline holders, who nod back and shunshin to join their comrades. He then leaps on top of a building only to see a large blue 2-tailed feline roaring and slamming her paw onto the ground and sending the Kiri nin that were fighting the rebels flying. Well, it looks like Kitty Cat has that section under control, he says, and then performs a series of hand seals and places his hand on the ground. A puff of smoke appeared beside him, and standing before him was none other than Hitomi. Well, it's about time you summoned me, she said while folding her arms under her bosoms while Naruto smirks. I hope you have a way in making this up to me. Naruto points to the battle going on and a toothy grin forms on her face. That'll work, she said while rubbing her hands together. Try to keep the casualties to a minimum, Hitomi-chan, since my family and friends are down there also, he instructed. She nodded back, gave him a mock salute and vanished in a flash of red. That was when an explosion occurred at the Mizukage Tower which got the blonde's attention. Better go help out whoever caused that against the overgrown Kame Turtle, he thought, and once again used Madara's Jikuken ninjutsu to warp away. With the others, Anko had just dropped Kikajanan in the back of his head and afterwards, reared her fist back. Sune Tajishu, many hidden shadow snake hands, she cried out, and a swarm of big snakes shot out of the sleeve of her trench coat in an instant, constricting and biting any Anbu nin that were in her path. After she called them back, she saw Shinjin slam 2 Kiri nin into the concrete and pull out his buster blade and swat 3 Chunin away like flies with the blunt end of his blade. Anko appeared beside him and deflected a volley of shuriken. You know, since this battle started I haven't seen you actually use that blade, she stated while the man smirks under his mask. That's because use brings about wear, tear, and rust, and this beauty's repairs are expensive. Besides, only those who are strong in my eyes are worthy enough to fall to my blade, he said as he performed a series of hand seals. Sweden. Sukoden no Jutsu, Water Release, Water Shark Missile Technique. Water rose from a large water fountain and formed into a shark with a head nearly at the same height as a man, and it moves to attack a squad of enemy nin at high speed and hits them with a powerful impact that sends water everywhere. Niece. My turn, she said, and did a quick series of hand seals. Doden. Doabiden, Earth Release, Earth Snake Bullet. The earth in front of her softened and the mud formed into a serpent made of mud that rose from the ground and hissed as it ascended towards a group of Chunin. Shinjin whistled as he had a Jonin in a headlock. Not bad, he said, and snapped the Jonin's neck, killing him instantly. Yūgao and Kushina were synchronized in their swords play and were simultaneously switching from offense to defense whenever they faced a Kiri nin. Shinku was evading some kunai swipes from two chunin who had their broadswords out, and then she leaned backwards as their broadswords swung over her head. They attempted to make another attempt only for Kagura to appear and block them with two single-edge ivory katanas, surprising them. Omoi appeared above them and brought his katanas out in a reversed position. Kumo Ryu. Mikazuki Kiri, Cloud Style. Crescent Moon Beheading. Omoi swings his blade in a clockwise arc and strikes them in the back, which caused them to cry out in pain and fall to the ground. Omoi stops the technique and then reversed the blade's sides when he senses three nin behind them. Kumo Ryu. Uragiri, Cloud Style Reverse Beheading. He does a reversal swinging arc and slits their throats instantly. Not bad, kid. Those were some sweet moves. Kagura said with a smirk on her face while Omoi shrugs. Thanks, but it's no big deal really. He stated while the Kagaya chuckles. Skilled and humble, you're alright in my book. She said while Shinku got up and vanished in a blur, striking down several ninja using the shukuchiki, Sojiro Seta's technique, with her katana and reappears with it drawn out but sheathes it once again. I hope Ni-san is doing okay. She said to herself and goes to help. Rin Wao was treating the injured while a group of Cloud Anbu were protecting the injured. Mizukage Tower. Mei was the first to leap out of the smoke and land on the rooftop, skidding backwards with Kaneheim drawn. Anishi was the next one to land next to her, but with the left sleeve of his jacket torn off. The snow-haired swordsman growled in frustration and ripped the jacket off, wearing a sleeveless black muscle shirt underneath it. Anishi, are you okay? Mei asked her childhood friend, who nodded. Yeah, I'm good. Damn, Tem tried to blow my arm off. He said with a scowl on his face. That was when Yagura in his cage robes appeared with a blank expression on his face. Don't assume that just because you planned a surprise attack on me doesn't mean you'll win, or have you forgotten about our encounter a while back, Mei Terumi? The man asked, which made the girl scowl. Yagura, do you realize what your actions have done to our village? Our country? How many lives were destroyed? Why are you doing this? What happened to make you change and become a tyrant? She asked the Jinchuriki, who remain unemotional. What I have done is purge our land of these accursed bloodlines, and I intend to carry on my ideals in purging this world of the very thing that starts wars and causes destruction, and anyone who disagrees with my ideals are traitors and deserve to die. He replied, which made the two clench their fists in anger. Is that so? Said a voice behind Mei and Anishi, and the two turned their heads and see Naruto walking towards them, with the difference being that he had the Sharingan activated and had what appeared to be a guard-less katana that had a black hilt with white diamond patterns on it drawn. Anishi's and Mei's eyes widened when they saw this dujutsu. Sharingan. Anishi asks himself. Yagura on the other hand narrows his eyes. Great. Another ninja has violated the soil of my country with his vile blood. He said darkly while Naruto keeps his expression calm and sharp. This coming from a cage who's the vessel for an overgrown turtle. He said, which made the man's eyes widened a little. I believe you contain the Sanbi no Kyodai game, three-tailed giant turtle, correct? How did you know? Unless you're a vessel too. Yagura asked, and his answer was Naruto with a smile on his face. You can say that, but sadly I don't have the time to explain it to you. After all, 3 is no match for 10. He replied, which made the other's eyes widened, especially Mei, because she believed that he was the vessel for the Kyuubi no Yoko and wondered why he said 10-tailed, because she thought that there were only 9 biju. Don't patronize me, fool. There is no 10-tailed biju. The Mizukage said, and then threw off his hat and robes. Yagura has unkempt gray hair, pink eyes, and what seems to be a stitch-like scar running from under his left eye all the way down his cheek. He has a dull expression and wears a gray undershirt with short mesh sleeves which has a metal plate of a Kurigakure forehead protector sewn onto it. He also wears a long green scarf around his neck, a turquoise sash around his waist, paired with a green indumenta that hangs on his legs, and black pants. He's one of the few ninjas to not wear sandals, instead relying on a pair of brown boots opened on the back. On his back he carries a staff-like pole weapon with uneven hooks with a green flower on the end of the larger hook. Naruto on the other hand chuckles and releases a burst of ki that surprises Yūgao, who felt the murderous intent, and for some reason he saw what looked like the image of a beast with 10 tails and had an eye with 9 tomos around 4 concentric rings. Dark blue chakra slowly forms around Naruto and flows off of him like fire, and the tiles underneath him cracked and started to spread out. Anishi and Mei were amazed when they felt the chakra emitting from Naruto's body. Incredible. The chakra emitting from his body is so powerful, and this isn't even the Biju's chakra. It's all him. The white tiger of the mist thought. Don't think so highly of yourself, boy. You are strong, but you are no match for a cage. He stated. Mei-san, Anishi-san. Naruto said quietly, getting their attention. Yūgao is being controlled by a powerful genjutsu. He stated, which made their eyes widen. Are you sure? Mei asked, and Naruto nodded. Yes. My eyes can see it, and whoever's doing it can use it even when he's not in the area. To pull a stunt like that requires someone who is beyond the level of a cage. He answered. So what should we do? Anishi asked. Our only option is to weaken him enough to sever the connection between him and his Biju and then break the genjutsu. Naruto finished while Anishi scoffs and draws his Wadodachi, the blade Anishi used in Rurouni Kenshin, Hoeido Tora, White Tiger. Easier said than done, kid. Yūgao has full control over his Biju and its power. He stated while Naruto grinned. And so do I. In a sense, because I am in a way the new Jubi. He said and thought to himself. Yūgao pulls his staff off his back, twirls it a few times and goes into a bojutsu stance. Naruto twirls his blade a few times and places it in a reversal grip while Anishi goes into a wadojutsu stance and Mei twists the hilt of her blade, making it ignite into a flaming blade. Listen, should he morph into his chakra cloak or Biju form, I want you to let me handle it. He said, getting side glances from them. Are you sure? Anishi asked the blonde, who nodded. While his Sharingan started to spin rapidly. Okay, then just be careful. Yūgao is highly skilled in using water, just you and I'm talking about Nadime level. He answered. That was when Naruto pulled a kunai out and chucked it at high speed. Kunai Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Shadow Kunai Clone Technique. Naruto said as he performed a series of hand seals. There were now around over 100 kunai ascending towards Yūgao, who started to twirl his hooked staff around clockwise in front of himself and deflect the kunais. Anishi took this opportunity to sprint around Yūgao and aimed when he got close enough, aimed for his side and swung his blade. Yūgao manages to deflect all the blades and then bilks an upward slash delivered by Anishi, who smirked. Poor form of defense, Mizukage. He taunted. Shugeki Tosei, kicking sword rush. Anishi kicks the back edge of his blade to increase the speed and force of the strike when he swings his wado upward. The force from the kick was so powerful that it forced Yūgao's staff back and in the air, leaving him open for an attack. Mei appears with her blade blazing and swings it at his torso. Homura Dama, burning soul. She cried out and swung at him diagonally, leaving a blazing trail of fire while the hit slashed a shocked Yūgao across the chest and torso, only he bursts into water. Shida Mizu Bunshin. She cursed and then had to duck to avoid being impaled by the small hook on the end of the cage's staff and leaps away. Anishi leaps into the air with his blade in a reversal position and seemed to be channeling wind chakra into the blade. Shiroitu, white sickle. He swings his blade twice, releasing 2 white crescent blades made of wind. Yugura leaps away and senses Naruto behind him and blocks a downward slash with his staff, and the blonde smirks. Chidori Nagashi, Thousand Bird Current. Electricity erupts from the blonde's body and zaps Yugura, who grunts in pain and is slightly paralyzed from the attack. Anishi took this opportunity to strike the man in the chest with a powerful palm strike that makes Yugura cough up saliva, and Mei appears and kicks him in the chin, sending him flying high into the air. Naruto appears behind him while in the air. Kage Buyo, Leaf Shadow Dance. He said quietly while Yugura's eyes widened as black bandages instantly wraps around his body and ensnares him in a cocoon-like state. Naruto grabs the man and starts to slowly rotate until they started to spin rapidly at incredible speed and descend towards the ground. Omit Renge, Initial Lotus. The blonde called out and he pile drives the Mizukage into the rooftop head first, making the place shake slightly and cause dust to rise up into the air. Naruto leaps out of the dust and in between the two leaders of the rebel faction and frowns. Stay on your toes because this is far from over, Naruto said as the dust cleared and revealed the broken body of Yugura, and it melts into water. They heard a boot slam on a roof tile and turned their heads to see Yugura glaring at them. I have to say you three are impressive, especially you boy. But even though you outnumber me, you don't outmatch me, he said as he performed a series of hand seals. Sweden. Sushoha, Water Release. Water Shockwave. Yugura creates a spiraling vortex of water from the moisture in the air, and the vortex then proceeds to explode from the top in the form of a wave that descended to the three. Naruto does a small series of hand seals and slams his palms onto the wall. Doden. Doryuheki. A large wide wall of earth appeared in front of the trio and stopped the impact of the wave, which shook the tower, and the remaining water dripped down the roof. Anishi took this opportunity to scale the wall until he reached the top while Mei ran around the earth wall doing a series of hand seals. Yoden. Yogan Nami. Her cheeks bulged and she spat out torrents of hot magma that covered up the entire roof and kept Yugura in his place, but said Mizukage scoffs and fires a torrent of water from his mouth which hit the magma and cooled it off as steam rose into the air. You little lave trick won't save you, Meiteru. He didn't get to finish due to the fact that he hissed out in pain when he saw the skin on his arm peel away as the steam hit his skin. Have you forgotten about my second Kekkei Genkei, you fool? Mei taunted as she did a horse seal and sucked air into her mouth. Futen. Komu no Jutsu, Boil Release. Skilled Mist Technique. Released a corrosive acid-like mist from her mouth which ascends and engulfs Yugura. Did she get him? Anishi asked himself, and his answer was a bluish-gray ethereal chakra hand launching itself at the earth wall and strikes it, demolishing said wall, which caused Anishi to fall of the crumbling wall and descend towards the jagged rocks, or would have, had his falling body not have been stopped by a human-sized cushion of sand. What the? He asked himself. Another one shot out of the mist and ascended towards a shocked Mei, who had little time to escape it until a wall of what appeared to be sand rose in front of her and it deflected the chakra hand. Mei blinks in shock when she sees this. Sand. But how? Mei asked herself and saw Anishi ascend towards the ground on a sand cushion that landed him down safely. Said sand dissipated and they watched as it ascended towards the Naruto, who had a large gourd that swallowed up the sand. Stay focused. That acid mist Mei-san conjured up only pissed him off, Naruto said while a tick mark appeared on Anishi's head. Nah, really? Anishi asked as a vein throbbed on his head. Anishi, calm down, Mei replied while the man snorts but tilts his round shades up. He gourd Naruto had was sealed up in one of the small scrolls he had, and the Yugura walked out of the mist with a dangerous look in his eye. I guess playtime's over, huh? Good. Naruto unsheathes his blade and has it in a reverse grip. 'Cause I'm about to show you what this kid can do, he said, and charges at Yugura, who gets into a bojutsu stance, and said blonde vanishes and appears behind Yugura, swinging his blade diagonally at the man's back. Yūgao spins his body and his staff clashes against Naruto's katana and the two were in a power struggle. Naruto smirks while Yūgao's eyes widen when a cage bunshin appeared behind him ready to run him through with its katana, but he presses a switch and the hook on the end of his staff fired and struck the clone, making it dispel. Naruto took this opportunity to grab his shoulder, plants his foot on the staff and uses it as a spring and struck Yūgao in the chin with his knee. Said blonde twists his body around lands back on the ground. Yūgao spins his body around and swings the end that had the hook connected to a chain and it wraps around Naruto's arm. Said blonde channels the Chidori through his blade and cuts it down. Yūgao scowls when this happened while Anishi appeared over him with his blade raised in the air. Shoha Tosei, destructive palm sword rush. Anishi uses his palm to push the Wado and performs a downward strike, which Yūgao managed to block but the speed and force from the attack causes a crater to form underneath the Jinchuriki. Mei on the other hand took this opportunity to slide under the man and break his balance with a slide kick, making the man stumble over while Anishi performs a roundhouse kick and strikes Yūgao in the jaw with the heel of his boot and sent the man flying and Yūgao crashes to the ground. He shakes the cobwebs out of his head only to hear the sound of birds chirping and he looks up to see Naruto descending towards him with his left arm reared back and covered in white electricity. Chidori, 1,000 birds. He called out and swung his arm at Yūgao's chest but the cage vanishes while Naruto slams his lightning-covered hand into the spot that the man was currently at and curses when he appears again with his staff raised and ready to drive the large hook into his skull only for Anishi to appear and stop the hook with the sharp edge of his blade but used one hand and had his right hand reared back into a palm strike. He swings it forward and strikes the man in the torso, making Yūgao grit his teeth in pain. I'm not done yet. Futon. K's Shusho, wind release, wind palm. Yūgao is sent flying backwards and was sent flying off the roof and into a building causing an explosion to occur. Naruto manages to free his arm and stands back up. Thanks. He said getting a smirk from th white-haired man. Don't mention it. So how is it that you have the Sharingan and was able to manipulate sand like that? Last I heard, the Uchiha clan was nearly wiped out by one that went rogue. He asked. That will be explained in due time but for now. Naruto closed his eyes and his eyes morphed into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. We have an extremely pissed off Jinchuriki cage to deal with. He said while an explosion erupted from the building Yūgao crashed into and standing in the rubble was Yūgao in a three-tailed clock form, similar to Naruto's four-tailed stated. And was snarling at the trio for a few seconds but then released a bestial roar that echoed throughout the village. Yūgao opened his mouth and gathers both positive black chakra, Kurisu no Kuro Chakura, and negative white chakra, Mainasu no Shiro Chakura, shaped it into a sphere, swallows it, and then compress it inside his mouth. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw this. Shit. Anishi. Mei. Grab my arms. Naruto screamed, which surprised them. But why? Anishi asked only for Naruto to grab his and Mei's arm as Yūgao fired the menacing ball at the three that ascended towards them at high speeds. A large explosion rocks the village and mushroom-shaped smoke appeared in the sky. When it cleared, the tower was reduced to rubble and the three could be seen nowhere in sight. The trio crashed into the ground away from Yūgao and the blonde let out a sigh of relief. That was too close. He said to himself while the two got up and the blonde stand up. That was a Jikuken ninjutsu he used. Does he know how to use his father's technique? But I didn't see him throw a kunai or use a formula jutsu. Anishi thought. Looks like I've got no other choice. He said and looks at Mei and Anishi. I have to take on Yūgao personally. He stated and looked at them. Are you capable of using your Biju's power at its fullest, Naruto? Mei asked and got a nod from the blonde. Yeah, my sensei Kurabi took me to a temple where I could learn how to use my Bijuu's chakra and powers at its fullest, but I can't use it fully if you're around cause I don't want you to get caught in the crossfire. He said as the two looked conflicted but hesitantly nod. Fine, we'll keep our distance but be careful Naruto-kun. Mei said, getting a smile from the blonde. I will. I'm gonna lead him away from the village and near the shores since no civilians will be around the area. He said and warps away again. Said blonde once again appears at the wrecked site with Yūgao, who was in his beast form, looking around for them and growling lowly. Hey Yūgao. Naruto called out, getting the man's attention, and saw the blonde flipped him off while giving him a raspberry. I've seen academy students with better aim. Are you positive you're a cage? He taunted out and knew that since the Sanbi was more animal-like and lacked intelligence, he knew the man would get irritated in an instant. Said vessel snarls out in anger and lunges at the blonde, who warped away while said Biju crashed to the ground leaving a large crater. Naruto appeared standing on a destroyed rooftop crouching down. Wow, now that was scary. I thought you said you had control over the shell head's power, Yagwa-chan. He drawled out and leapt away when an extended chakra tendril tried to grab him. Yūgao leapt out of the crater and saw the blonde running towards the outskirts of the village with Yūgao going after him. That's right, shell for brains, follow the leader. Naruto thought as he increased the pace. Open field. Naruto landed on an open field that was surrounded by a few mountains and was near the shoreline waiting for Yūgao to arrive, and then he smirks when the man in his Jinchuriki form landed in the clearing, loudly making the ground shake. Foolish boy. Did you honestly think you could get away from me? Yūgao snarled out while Naruto's smirk turned into a feral grin. Where did you get the idea that I was running from you, Tem? Now that we're away from the battleground, I can deal with you and not have to hold back. He said as his canines turned into fangs, and while a yellow golden chakra cloak with 10 tails surrounded his body and the pupil in his M's turned into a slit and his skin started to slowly peel off. Yūgao's white eyes widened in disbelief as he saw this. Surprised. I told you that I wasn't kidding when I said I possessed a 10-tailed beast in my body, and now you're gonna see firsthand what I'm capable of. He said as an animalistic snarl escaped from his lips while his eyes glowed red while a yellow dome formed around his body. Said blonde dropped on all fours while his fingernails and toenails extended and formed into claws. He then bowed his head for a few seconds and let out a bestial roar which caused a powerful shockwave to be released, and the dome shot up and formed into a pillar of yellow light. Back in Kiri, Yūgao released a tailed beast sonic roar that sent a squad of Jonin flying into some rubble and was about to move forward but then stopped and looked up to see a pillar of yellow light. Samui has cut down a Chunin and saw Yūgao looking at the pillar of light. Yūgao, what is it? She asked. It's Naruto-kun. Whoever he's fighting is making him use his Biju powers, but the odd thing is, it isn't Kyuubi's from what Neko's telling me, and says that it's something more powerful than the fox. She stated, which made her eyes widened. She's right, you know, said another feminine voice. They turned their heads to see a red head with red slit eyes. Hitomi looked up at Yūgao's form and grinned. Hey kitty cat, how's life treating you? Said Nekomata's eyes widened and Nibi switched with Yūgao for second. Hitomi, how did you get out of your vessel? She asked, which came close to shouting while the vixen just chuckled. Oh, that is a long story. She stated while Samui's eyes bugged out. Kushina was helping an injured Koga to one of the infirmaries, but then she paused and looked at a pillar of chakra. Sochi, I hope you're not doing anything reckless. She said to herself. Back with Naruto and Yūgao. As the light pillar ended, Naruto was in the version 2 Biju form, Kurabi's in Naruto's form, with a mixture of solid yellow and black chakra covering his body. His appearance was in the form of a humanoid wolf with 10 tails flailing behind it. Had black surrounding his face and his eyes glowed red, and it snarled lowly at a shocked and stunned Yūgao. Naruto took a step forward and his footsteps sounded like thunder claps and flexed his clawed hands. He suddenly vanished in a flash of yellow, and the next thing Yugura knew, a hand wrapped around his face and was slammed into the ground, creating a large and wide crater. Naruto let out a roar and flung Yugura into the side of a mountain, and a portion of it collapsed on top of him. That was when a fast and powerful stream of water shot towards Naruto. Said blonde snarled and stopped the attack with just one hand, and it only made him skid back a few inches. When it stopped, ethereal chakra arms shot out and grabbed Naruto's arms, and the young Namikaze growled and used two of his tails to sever them and make the stumps retract, and flung them off and fired a series of menacing balls at Yugura's current location, which resulted in multiple explosions occurring. Yugura managed to leap out of the explosion only for Naruto to appear with his fist back. He let out a primal roar and slugged the miniature Sanbi in the face full force and sent him descending towards the ground at high speed, which resulted in the ground exploding, and Yugura went skidding through the forest, across the sand, and finally entering the ocean shores and crashing in the water, creating a powerful tidal wave. Naruto landed back onto the ground and let out a victory roar. Before he glowed and morphed back into his normal state, panting a little. I guess my current body wasn't capable of handling that much of the Jubi's power yet, he said to himself as he saw an enormous crater connected to a deep ditch-like trail that left a path of destruction through the forest. Guess I went a little overboard. Oh well, he said, and once again warped away and appeared on a rock near the ocean shores. Come out wherever you are, he said quietly, and saw bubbles near the open ocean, and then he grinned. Looks like shell for brains isn't done yet, the blonde thought as the bubbles grew and grew until the water started to slowly rise and revealed the true form of the Sanbi Kyōdai game. Naruto stood quietly on a rock as he stared at the Sanbi no Kyōdai game, three-tailed giant turtle, while water dripped down the beast's body. The three tails primarily resembles a turtle, but with a crab-like shell, and three shrimp-like tails. It has a pair of human arms and hands, but no hind legs. Its right eye is constantly closed, indicating some sort of injury, and because of this, it is particularly vulnerable to attacks directed at its right eye. I can't say that this form is an improvement, since you look like something Yugito-chan threw up from eating bad shellfish. The blonde taunted and said. Biju snarled angrily at being insulted. You puny insect. Even now that I reveal my true form to you, you still mock me. I'll make sure that you suffer for this, and will be the prime example of those who go against me will die. Yugura growled out and unleashed a roar so powerful that the shockwave split the water and sent sand flying in different directions. Naruto's hair swayed back from the roar but remained on the rock he was standing on until it died down. Phew dude, you need to lay off the fish. There's a new invention that was made and I believe it is called a mint. Naruto replied and for emphasis waved his hand in front of his face in a disgusted manner. Yugura growled and raised his large hand into the air and over Naruto's form and brought it down fast and hard, and when it landed, it caused the earth to shake violently. Yugura raised his enlarged hand in order to see the smear that he made but only saw his imprint. The Sanbi growled and looked around for its prey. Naruto was sitting on the beast's head with his right hand covered in lightning chakra, and it was light blue. Raiden. Gakido Ikazuki, lightning releases, raging thunder. Powerful volts of electricity shot around Yugura's Sanbi body, causing the Jinchuriki to howl out in agony as countless volts of electricity hit every single part of its body simultaneously. After the technique ended, Naruto leapt off the beast's head and landed in front of the beast, who snarls and sweeps at Naruto, who simply phases through the arm, and then the water hybrid attempted to backhand him, only for Naruto simply stop the beast's arm with one hand. Such a mindless beast you are, Yugura-chan. Naruto chastised and grabs a hold of one of its large fingers and slowly lifts it out of the water. Someone should teach you some manners. He then tosses him over his shoulder and slams him into the sandy, rocky shores, sending waves of sand and pieces of rocks everywhere. Let's take this fight somewhere less wet. Naruto suggests as her activated his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Kamui, might of the gods. The area around them ripples and Yagura is sucked into a void instantly and the ripples end. Naruto warps away afterwards. A few seconds later a ripple appears around some village ruins that were caused by the civil war and a vortex appears. Coming down from it was none other than Yagura in Sanbi form and came crashing down into the village hard. Naruto appeared on top of a destroyed building with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. There. This will do. He's out of his element and there are no people around. The Sanbi gets back on its feet and snarls as it looks around for Naruto. Said lets out a loud whistle. Yagura turns his head to see Naruto grinning and flipping him off and said transformed Mizukage growls and picks up a large boulder. Naruto ends his charade and starts to get serious. His chakra flares and morphs into a yellow layer of what appeared to be cloaked armor with lightning static coursing around it. I gotta remind myself to thank E-sensei for teaching me this technique. He said to himself as the Raiden no Yoroi, lightning release armor, flared up causing his hair to spike up as well, similar to how E's spiked up when he fought Sasuke. The Sanbi roars and chucks the boulder at Naruto. Said blonde reared his fist back and let out a battle cry as he swung his fist forward and smashed the boulder to pieces. The Sanbi then grabbed a large building and chucked it in Naruto who vanished while the building smashed the location Naruto was at and appeared over Yagura's form with his right leg raised. Gorochen Darapu, guillotine drop. Naruto cried out performs a downward kick on his opponent. The heel of his foot slams down onto the water hybrid skull and sent him crashing into the ground and creating a 20-foot wide crater that causes dust and debris to fly in different directions. Naruto lands in front of the down Biju with his armor still active until a large gray hand shot out and attempted to grab Naruto, but the blonde to cut off 3 of its fingers, causing the beast to howl in pain. And he leaps into the air. Kaden. Karui&Samui fire release. Dragon flame missile. He unleashes a stream of white-hot fire that hits the Sanbi hard, making the beast roar in anger as his skin was scorched by the hot flames. After it ended, Naruto landed behind one of the tails and dodged the one that tried to squash him and then the other attempted to, but he leapt into the air doing aerial somersault and then slammed his chakra-enhanced fist into the beast's shell, causing it to crack. Yagura was getting frustrated and unleashed a roar so powerful that it sent a shock wave around the entire area and destroyed everything around it. Naruto was sent flying off its back and crashing through 3 wrecked buildings, but he flips backwards and lands back on his feet, skidding backwards and shaking the cobwebs out of his head. Okay, now he's pissed. He stated and leapt on top of a destroyed rooftop and saw Yagura's Biju form with its head raised and was gathering positive black chakra, Kurasu no Kuro Chakura, and negative white chakra, Minasu no Shiro Chakura, shape it into a sphere, and then compress it inside its mouth. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw the compressed chakra get bigger and bigger. Is he nuts? That Amari, menacing ball, has enough power behind it to level a quarter of water country. He said as the ball became larger. With the rebel faction, Kagura Kagaya had just run a Kiri Anbu through with her bone blade and kicked him off the building and sensed something powerful. She turned her head and her eyes widened in disbelief when she saw a large sphere made of energy. Oh Kami, no. He wouldn't. She said in horror while Benkei landed beside her. Kagura, we managed to gain control of the eastern sector of. He saw the horrified look on her face and wondered what she was looking at until his expression became similar to her. No. That attack, it's. Mei, Anishi, and the others also saw the menacing ball and couldn't believe what Yagura was about to do. No, Yagura, don't do it. Mei begged. Yugito was shocked by the size of the ball. That menacing ball is too unstable. If he completes it, half of Water Country will become a charred barren wasteland. The vessel for Nibi stated while the other ninja, both rebel and enemy each had horrified looks on their face. No. The Mizukage wouldn't. One Kiri-Jonin stated. Hitomi cursed and sped off, heading to where Naruto and Yugura were as did the other leaders in Naruto's family. The ground around Yugura's beast form started to tremble and debris started to slowly rise from the power emitting from the ball of compressed energy. Naruto's train of thought was running a mile a minute. Damn it, how do I stop that? If I hit him and he drops that attack, this place will become a giant crater, but if his fires it, half of Water Country will be destroyed and there's no way I'm using the Kuchiyos, Yutai Kuzushi no Jutsu, summoning, food cart destroyer technique. Come on Naruto, think, damn it, think. He said to himself until the idea flashed in his head. Got it. He then pulls out a tri-prong kunai that had a black seal tag with white seal formulas on it. I just hope I got this down all the way. He prayed. The leaders as well as their allies made it to the ruins and they saw Sanbi roar as the energy ball was now twice as big as it was. Hey, is that Naruto? Anko asked as she saw the blonde. Kushina's eyes widened in fear as she saw her son not moving away from the attack. What is he doing? Aniki, get out of there. Shinku said to herself. Dai Namikaze. Sanbi Amari, three-tailed menacing ball. Yugura roared and fired the chakra blast. Everyone hit the ground. Mei screamed and they each got down. The menacing ball made its way towards Naruto, making debris scatter due to its speed and velocity. Not gonna happen, Naruto said as he went through a series of fast-paced hand seals with the tri-pronged kunai in his hand. As it got closer and was about to hit the blonde, it appeared to get absorbed into what appeared to be a barrier with kanji seals stretching outwards and sucking the attack in. What? Impossible. That was my strongest attack. Yugura roared in disbelief and anger as his menacing ball was now completely gone and saw that Naruto held a Hiraishin kunai in both hands. Mei was the first to look up and saw nothing happened, aside from the large trenches in the ground, and saw Naruto was completely unharmed. The other ninja looked up and their eyes bugged when they saw nothing. What the? How did he? Anishi asked, only to hear an explosion occur, and they looked back to see a light blue dome form on top of the ocean and saw large waves crashing into the rocky cliffs and the ground tremble. How did he do that? Yūgao wondered while Kakashi remained silent. That was a Jikuken Kekai ninjutsu, space-time barrier technique, and it was similar to Minato sensei's. When did Naruto learn how to do Jikuken jutsu? And that time I saw his eyes changed. He thought as he narrowed his eyes and then they widened in disbelief at what he saw. Both of Naruto's eyes were similar to the Mangekyo Sharingan. So he did have the Sharingan, and the Mangekyo form no less. How did he gain them? Yugura's bestial form let out a roar of frustration and lunged at Naruto, who remained in his position and calm. What's he doing? He'll get crushed. Kagura stated. Naruto, get out of there. Karui cried as the Sanbi its fist back and roar while swinging it forward only for a golden ethereal skeletal hand to stop the fist. What the? Yugura said in disbelief. This has gone on for too long. Naruto said in a calm yet cold tone. A flaming chakra with a red outline flared around his body and grew until a skeletal figure manifested around Naruto. I never thought I'd have to use this jutsu against a beast like you, especially since this is my first time using it. The skeletal figure's eyes glowed red and muscle and tissue fabricated and coiled around the figure, giving it a humanoid form until armor that represented the one samurai wore in the feudal era formed around the body until the armored helmet took on the form of a fox head with jagged teeth that appeared to be snarling. Strapped to its sash was a katana. The armored hand suddenly swatted the hand away and struck the Biju straight in the face and sent the beast crashing through several buildings. Unfortunately, I don't have time to play around, so I'm gonna end this quickly, or else this entire country will be reduced to a barren wasteland. Yūgao say hello to Susanoo, god of the raging storm. The ethereal spirit reached for its katana and draws the sword, and it ignites onto an ethereal flaming blade. Yūgao shot out of the rubble, roaring in pure rage, and charges blindly at Naruto. Just like a mindless beast to charge into a fight blindly. Naruto stated while an ethereal shield formed around Susanoo's left arm. The Sanbi crashed right into the shield, which barely blew Susanoo back, and they got into a battle of strength. Susanoo uses the shield to knock Sanbi away and swings the blade downwards, penetrating the shell and cutting through skin. Gra ahhhhhh. What is that blade, and how can it hurt me in my Biju state? Yūgao wailed out as he backed off and swiped at the ethereal spirit that blocked the attack with the shield, and then hacked off the beast's arm. Another agonizing wail escaped from its lips and attempted to regrow the arm, only for Naruto to hack off a piece of its shell and perform a series of slashes across its body. Yūgao staggered around, trying to stand firm with its one arm. He tried to regrow the arm, nothing happened. What in the? I can't recover my arm. What did you do to me, you damn brat? He roared out, only for the ethereal blade to be plunged into its skull and freeze up. It's done, Naruto said calmly while the ethereal spirit started to pull the blade backwards and started to slowly absorb the Sanbi. What are you doing? Yūgao asked as it struggled to get away, only for it to get sucked in a lot faster. I'm draining you of your beast's chakra, Naruto said as more of Yūgao's beast form started to get sucked in. No. Stop this at once. Stop. He cried out as more of it got sucked into the blade until Yūgao could be seen on one knee. After sucking away the beast's chakra, Susanoo sheathed its blade. This war is over, Yūgao, and your reign is history, Naruto said as he took a step forwards, only for his eyes to widen as he felt an untold amount of pain rack his entire body. He suddenly gripped his shirt and he vomited out a glob full of blood. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw this, and Hitomi cursed under her breath. Damn it. I warned him that it was too soon to use that technique, even if he is the new Jubi. She said to herself. What's going on? He was fine not too long ago, and now he's on the ground coughing up blood. Mei stated and looked at Kushina, who was shocked beyond belief. Kushina, did Naruto gain any type of disease by any chance? She asked the redhead, who shook her head. No, he and Shinku have been healthy since the day they were born and haven't gotten any form of disease at all, she answered. Naruto collapsed on one knee and started to cough up blood for a few seconds, while Susanoo receded into its skeletal form. He looked at the ground and saw his vision was getting blurry. Damn it. I should have taken Hitomi-chan's advice and not used Susanoo until my body could adjust to my powers. He slowly got back on his feet, attempting to brush off the pain while Susanoo got back into its humanoid form. Yūgao got back on his feet with bloody murder in his eyes. Damn you, boy. Do you realize what you've done? You ruined everything. He screamed and pulled out a series of kunai with tags connected to them and threw them. They made contact and exploded, but when the smoke cleared, a shield was protecting Naruto, who was talking towards Yūgao's shocked form, until he snapped out of it and fired a series of large water bullets that hit the shield, but they were shrugged off. He staggered back and his knees became wobbly. Your chakra is almost gone, Yūgao. Give up, Naruto said calmly as his body tensed up in pain, but he attempted to shake it off. Yūgao snarled and pulled his hooked staff. Never. He cried and leapt into the air with the staff raised over his head. He attempted to drive the blade into the shield, only for it to be deflected and sent him crashing into the ground while he lost his weapon. Susanoo receded and the aura around Naruto faded and he deactivated his eyes. When Yūgao got up again, a fingerless gloved hand wraps around his throat and slammed him into a concrete wall. Naruto his fist back and slammed it into Yugura's gut, making him cough out blood. Naruto then did a ram seal and activated his Sharingan, making Yugura's eyes widened as he gazed into them and the tomos spin rapidly. Kai! Naruto called out, causing Yugura's eyes to snap out of their glazed form. The blonde then reared his hand back and purple flames engulfed the tips which had the kanji for metal, wood, fire, earth, and wind. Gogyo Fuin, 5 elemental seal. Naruto called out and slammed his fingertips around the cage's stomach, making him gasp out in pain and then slump over into unconsciousness. With Madara, the man was in an underground base sitting cross-legged in the shadows until his Sharingan eyes snapped opened. What is this? Someone has removed the genjutsu I placed on Yugura, but that's impossible. He then made an attempt to perform a ram seal only for a pair of Sharingan eyes to appear before him glowing and he let out a gasp. No way. There is someone out there who wields a Sharingan that matches mine in terms of power, but that can't be right. He said to himself and narrowed his eyes in the shadows. It matters not, for whomever did this will pay dearly. Back with Naruto. Naruto dropped the man onto the ground until he coughed out more blood and fell to his knees, clutching onto the area where his heart is and started to cough violently. Naruto! Kushina cried out and about to leap off the cliff only to see another red blur to appear beside the blonde kneeling down while he gritted his teeth in pain. Her and everyone's eyes widened when they saw 9 fox tails and fox ears on her person and knelt down beside Naruto. Kushina snapped out of her stupor and headed towards their location as did the others. Said blonde was coughing out blood violently while holding his chest in pain. I warned you not to use that technique so soon, Naruto. Your body is not yet ready to fully use it yet, even if you are the new Jubi. Luckily you don't have to worry about shortening your lifespan. She stated while he spat some blood out of his mouth and looked at her weakly. The next time I make a stupid mistake like this, beat some sense into me. He stated, and the last thing he saw before he met darkness was his family heading towards them. 2 weeks later, the first thing Naruto saw as he opened his eyes was the inside of a white tent. He let out a groan and slowly sat up, shaking the drowsiness out of his head, and blinked a few times, realizing he was in a recovery room. He looked down to see his shirt was gone, but he still had on his pants. Beside his bed was Hitomi in her kit form curled up. The blonde smiled and reached out and gently pats her on the top of her head. She stirs in her sleep and opens her eyes to see a smiling Naruto. Hey, was all he said before she morphed into her hybrid form and pulled him into a hug while he let out a grunt but patted her on the back. It's about time you woke up. Your family and friends were getting worried sick. She stated while he brushed his hair back and placed his feet on the floor. How long was I out? Naruto asked Hitomi, who sat down on a chair. 2 weeks. The ones who were on Yugura's side surrendered after you had Susanoo absorb Yugura's beast form and sealed off the rest of his chakra with that fuinjutsu. I also explained to your mother and the others how I am free but still bonded to you. She explained. I've got a lot of explain to do, huh? He asked and got a nod from her. Oh well, it was bound to happen sooner or later. Where's my gear? He asked Hitomi, who pointed to a large scroll and duffel bag that was beside another chair. After he got dressed, he exited out of the tent, and before he knew it, he was tackled and glomped by 2 blurs, aka Karui and Yugito ni. Naruto grunted once again and patted them on the back. Hey ladies. He strained out while they released him, but then got a brain duster to the skull by Yugito. Ow. What was that for? He cried out, clutching his head, and glaring at Yugito, who glared back. For being a baka. You were out for 2 whole weeks and had us worried, you jerk. She replied in an angry yet worried tone. Your mom and sister have been restless while you were out, so if I were you I'd get to them first. Naruto's eyes widened and looked ashamed for worrying them like that. Sorry. That was my first time using that jutsu when I fought Yagura and I wanted to end the fight as soon as possible. I didn't want to use my Biju transformation because I'd only be causing needless damage and harm anyone who got caught in the crossfire. He apologized while she huffs up and still glares at him. You may be a baka but at least you're a caring baka. Karui said with a smile on her face. Now go see your family before I kick your ass. Naruto smirks and gave her a salute and warps away. Kakashi was currently leaned against a tree reading his Ika Ika book and Naruto appeared. Kakashi looked up and saw Naruto. Good to see you awake, Naruto. Kushina and Shinku are worried sick over you. He stated, and Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, I know. Yugito informed me and I already got a brain duster to the head by Yugi-chan. He states while Kakashi chuckles, but afterwards, a serious expression forms on his face. Also Naruto, I think you'll need to explain about how you possessed the Sharingan when you fought Yagura and why Kyuubi is out of the seal roaming around. He replied, and a serious expression formed on Naruto's face as well. I will in due time, Ni-san, but for now I just want to see my family. He replied. Kakashi I smiled and nodded at Naruto. And so that you know, Naruto, I'm proud of you. Kakashi said while Naruto smiled and nodded a thanks before walking towards one of the tents. As he opened the flaps, he saw Shinku sleeping in one of the hammocks peacefully and walked over to her and knelt down. He pushed a strand of hair aside and gave her a kiss on the forehead just like he did when they were younger. She stirred in her sleep and slowly opened her eyes to see her twin eye smiling. She rubbed her eyes in order to get a better view of her brother and her eyes widened. Aniki? She asked and Naruto nodded in return. Tears formed around her eyes and the next thing he knew she leapt off the hammock and tackled him, but he managed to keep his footing while she sobbed into his chest, muffling how happy she was to see him up and okay. Naruto smiled and returned the hug. Sorry I worried you like that, Shinku-chan. Naruto apologized. Say, where's Ka-san and the others? He asked as he released her while she wiped the tears from her eyes. That was when he was pulled into a bone-crushing hug by his sobbing mother, and both Anko and Rin joined in, crushing the life out of Naruto, who was turning blue. Mina. C can't be breathe. He stained out to the three sobbing women. Kakashi on the other hand was chuckling while Yūgao sweat dropped and looked at her leader. Anyo-senpai, shouldn't we help Naruto-kun out before he dies from their hugs? She asked the son of the White Fang, who shook his head. No, that would be bad for me, Yūgao-chan. Kushina, Anko, and Rin-chan are dangerous when angry. Can you imagine how they'll react if I tried to separate them from Naruto? He asked his former subordinate, who pondered on this but paled and shuddered. Good point, she replied. After that little scene, Naruto led them into a secluded sector of the forest. Hey Gaki, why did you lead us in the middle of nowhere? Anko asked, and that was when Hitomi appeared before them. Took you long enough, Hitomi-chan. Were you trying to hunt for rabbits again? He asked in an annoyed tone, which made her rub the back of her head and smile sheepishly. When the others saw Hitomi, they got into a fighting stance ready for a fight. Whoa, everyone chill out. No need to make this place into a war zone. Naruto said, getting in front of Hitomi. This is the thanks I get for helping out in the war. I'm hurt, she said with a pout on her face while her ears dropped. But Naruto-kun, how do you know she won't turn on us? Rin asked the blonde, who sighs. Simple, Nei-chan. 1. She can't and won't attack unless I say she can. 2. We are bonded by the seal, so I can put her back in the seal if I want to. And 3. His eyes closed, confusing them for a few seconds, and then he reopened them, revealing the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and causing everyone to gasp when they saw his eyes. I can use the power of my eyes to stop her from going berserk. Sochi. Your eyes. What happened to your eyes? Kushina asked Naruto, whose expression went from serious to sorrowful. He then went through a few hand signs and a purple dome surrounds them. There, that way now one can listen into what I'm about to explain nor enter this barrier without getting scorched. He stated. What do you mean, Aniki? Shinku asked Naruto. Trust me, it's for everyone's safety, especially with all the powerful enemies that hate Konoha as well as our family Imouto. Naruto answered. Now I want each and every one of you to look directly into my eyes. He instructed and they did. The next thing they knew, they were in a world where the sky was blood red as was the moon that had a black outline around it. The ground was black and gray with white outlines, and when the others looked at themselves, they too were black with white outlines. What in the world? Anko asked while looking at her hands and the others. Relax, Anko-chan, Naruto-kun just brought us into his realm. Hitomi stated while Naruto appears in a swirl of fire, but he was in the form he had in his timeline. He wore a pair of Anbu cargo pants with Anbu-styled sandals, a dark green Jonin flak jacket and a version of his father's cape that had the kanji for Rokudaime Hokage, 6th Fire Shadow, Nadaime Kiroi Senku, 2nd Yellow Flash, and Kami no Sharingan, God of the Copy Wheel Eyes, on the back. He looked like an older version of his father, but the difference was the cerulean eyes had slit pupils and canines jutted from his upper lip, which gave him a handsome yet feral appearance. Kakashi's and Rin's eyes bug out when they saw this version of Naruto, while Anko, Yūgao, and without realizing it, Kushina and Shinku were blushing. She's right. The jutsu that I used is an illusion called Tsukuyomi. In this realm I control time, space, as well as the physical mass. I have absolute control over this realm. Naruto stated, and with a snap of his fingers, the world changes. The sky was midnight blue with shining stars and a glowing white moon, and they were now in an open field and they were in their normal color. This is a secondary version of the Tsukuyomi I discovered while training how to use my eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Interesting, but it doesn't explain how you gained those eyes in the first place, Naruto. Was that jutsu you used against Yagura an effect of those eyes? Kakashi asked Naruto, who nodded. Yes, that jutsu I used was called Susanoo, the strongest offensive and defensive jutsu that belonged to the Uchiha clan. As for how I gained them, I am not from this timeline. He answered, making their eyes widen. Instead of explaining it, I'll show you. So for the next couple of hours, Kushina, Shinku, Rin, Kakashi, Anko, Yūgao, and Hitomi watched the events that occurred in Naruto's life. How Minato and Kushina died, sealing Hitomi into him, how the villagers wanted him killed and was treated like dirt since the day he could speak and walk while trying to gain their acknowledgement. They also saw his first mission to Wave Country, the Chunin exams, invasion planned by Orochimaru, retrieving Tsunade and Sasuke when he deserted the village, etc. Afterwards they saw him when he was 16 and returned back to Konoha after training with Jiraiya in his family's techniques and learning senjutsu, fighting the Akatsuki until they started the Fourth Shinobi War, where the five elementals united to fight the organization with Naruto as the Rokudaime Hokage and leader of the allied forces, in the battle where the ninja from each nation fought and died to their last breath. The last thing they saw was Naruto fighting Madara and Sasuke, with him gaining the upper hand until the ancient Uchiha pulled a sneak attack. Afterwards, they all saw where they attempted to remove the last Biju from his body with a demonic-looking statue in order to resurrect the Jubi, only for Naruto to create a powerful seal that reversed the technique and absorbed the other 8 Biju as well as Madara and Sasuke, gaining their knowledge, eyes, and powers as well, absorbing the Jubi's powers and soul, becoming the new Jubi in the process. After watching this, they found themselves back in the real world and remained silent for a while. My Kami, all of that actually happened to you? Anko asked and got a nod from Naruto. So Madara Uchiha was the one responsible for everything that happened? Kushina said in a tone full of hatred and anger while clenching her fists. Yes, he was pulling everything from the shadows and the reason why the world is in its current state. He believes it is his right to be the ruler of the world and a god amongst men. That cynical arrogant bastard actually thought he had the right to play with others' lives but paid the ultimate price, and now his power is my power. Naruto answered. So does that mean he's alive in this timeline? Rin asked Naruto, and Hitomi growled. Yes, he is. Even in his weakened state, that accursed ninja used those damn eyes of his to make me go berserk and attack your village. He even managed to cast the Yondaime Mizukage in a powerful genjutsu and control his actions, which resulted in the bloodline genocide to happen. That man is evil incarnate, and I swear the next time I meet him I'll make his death slow and extremely painful. The nine-tailed vixen snarled out. Naruto placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. All in due time, Hitomi-chan. There are others aside from Madara that we have to worry about, like Orochimaru and Danzo for example. He stated, getting grim expression from the others. The Akatsuki won't be active for a while, which means the Snake and the War Hawk will be making attempts to destroy Konoha in their own way. They must be taken out of the picture as soon as possible, and then there's the other Jinchuriki that need to be warned. The blonde explained to them. Easier said than done, Gaki. Anko said. Danzo can easily eliminate any traces that are connected to him or his organization, and Orochimaru hasn't been spotted for a long time. Naruto on the other hand smirks. Oh, I already know where Orochimaru is hiding in Danzo. He'll be dealt with soon. That man has been a thorn in my family's side for too long, and I plan on ripping his vile heart out with my bare hands. Naruto said darkly. But what about the other Jinchuriki and Ikki? We already know Yugito and Kurabi hold the Nibi and Hachibi, and that Yagura is the holder of the Sanbi, but we don't know where the others are. Shinku asked Naruto, who once again grinned. That is why having the knowledge of the eye-stealing Tem has its strong points. I already know who the vessel of the Ikibi is, since he resides in Sunagakure and is the Yondaime Kazekage's younger son. The vessel for the Rokubi is traveling around the neutral countries, the Nanabi is residing in Takigakure, and the vessels for the Yonbi and Gobi-ri in self-exile in Iwagakure. He explained, getting gob-smacked looks from them all. So what do you intend to do? Yūgao asked Naruto, who brushed his hair back. Hopefully I can get into contact with them before the Akatsuki can get their locations and capture them, and afterwards I need to deal with Orochimaru, since he and his Sound Village won't be operational for about a year, and at the very least destroy some of his bases. All in all, I have my hands full. He said, and deactivated the barrier and stood up. But for now let's go enjoy the celebration with the rebels in ending this war. He said, smiling, while they all did the same. And this time I will make sure history doesn't repeat itself.